everyone, welcome to Melancholy Coaching Podcast. Join me as I interview inspiring business owners and self-improvement seekers while exploring business building, monetizing ideas and practical takeaways. Let's ignite our creative potential together. Hello and welcome to Melancholy Coaching Podcast, the show that highlights different business owners and ideas. I'm Fran, your NLP and Business Coach, and I'm pleased to introduce an inspirational guest. Daman is a powerhouse in the world of sales and business development with over 25 years of experience. He's built a career out of driving exponential growth for small and mid-sized companies, earning prestigious nods like the Profit 500 and Growth 500 awards along the way. Beyond his own success, Daman is co-founder of logisticsales.com, a global platform dedicated to making high-quality, real-world education in business, sales and communication completely free for everyone. Whether he's advocating for the future of supply chain management or helping learners land their next job, Daman is on a mission. I love that you're on a mission to put practical industry insights into the hands of people everywhere. Incredibly impressive. I've got a couple of questions for you. So welcome to the show. Very excited about speaking to you, actually. So welcome to the show and thank you for being here. I've got a couple of questions for you and we'll have a chat around that if that's okay with you.
100%. Thank you so much again for allowing me to be here and being able to share about logisticsales.com. Thank you,
Yeah,
Fran.
very, very, very excited. So, what 25 years of success in sales. So that's a real accomplishment. But what was the specific moment that made you decide to launch a completely free educational platform?
We were actually doing this privately within some of the businesses that I own.
Mm.
And we realized that there was such a demand for, especially North American education, knowledge base, opportunities in North America. And we noticed that it was people that were interested from around the world. So we actually had about 65 different countries around the world that showed interest, or students from these 65 countries. And we were trying to do a lot of it one-on-one. Again, it was a lot of it was just people wanting to learn about sales opportunities within some of the businesses that I have in transportation and logistics. And we just said, if there's so many people that are interested in this, and like even people that had really restrictive internet. So like people in Iran would have VPNs and they would really, say, okay, well, how do we tap into this North American market? How do we get a higher level of education? How do we capitalize on some of these opportunities? And we realized, like, if people were that hungry for that knowledge, then again, it was a little bit too difficult to do one-on-one as much. So we would try to do group sessions on Zoom. But again, it was just overwhelming. So we just said, okay, well, let's try to create a platform that's one to many, and let's just provide information that's basically for free. And what we noticed too is even beyond like transportation and logistics, which is mostly my background, we started helping people in a lot of different industries, whether it was importing goods from Vietnam to North America, or from different parts of the world, or starting different types of businesses of commodities that people were dealing with. So in transportation, we have this one saying which it says, if you bought it, a truck brought it.
I
And
love that.
so we realized that supply chains are global as well. So we were able to help a lot of people in a lot of different ways, just regardless of their entrepreneurial journey or their sales journey or even basic communication skills. And that's really what we wanted to teach people, was to give them a basic foundation of how to have some of these basic skill sets so they could be employable and also be able to learn that, again, they could achieve financial freedom. And we had people that were like based in some of these countries, whether in Asia, Africa, that were able to start doing business in North America. And they just needed a little bit of confidence and a
That's
little bit of
amazing.
mentorship, yeah, to be able to do
Yeah.
so.
So what I'm mainly hearing is that you've spotted some gaps potentially in how you can help
Mhm.
people, and you've kind of adopted and adapted learnings along the way, haven't you? So by trying it and then realizing what wasn't going to work, you can work out what will work, to
Mm-hmm.
help support people. It's so important, isn't it? Because so many people, including myself, have started things and then kind of given up along the way, thinking, oh, I can't really do that. And because it's really hard to spot how we can kind of pivot or, take the learnings with us to actually get something to work. So I love that you just kind of just kept going with it and made it reach people in other countries.
For sure. And I think it's, Fran, I know it's like you're a business coach as well, and you help a lot of people. And I think it's probably similar where people were probably reaching out to you for help anyhow.
Yeah,
And you're just like, okay, if people are already reaching out to me for help, how do I put this into place where I can do it professionally or value my time? Something along those lines, right? Where it just becomes like a natural fit. And that's kind of what happened with us. But I'm sure, I'd love to hear how you got started into coaching as well. But I think, that's probably those steps that fall in line is just something that it's usually a calling for us to
yeah.
be able to step forward and say, okay, hey, I think it's time.
I st I actually started after realizing and accepting that I needed to help myself. So my actual
Hmm.
background is a carer, so care assistant. I'm not sure how that
Okay. Yeah.
translates to you, but
Yeah.
basically I was a
Hmm.
carer for over 25 years, and got very burnt out because I love giving, I love helping, and I needed to help myself. I needed to appreciate that I needed to help myself. And then I noticed so many other
Hmm.
people didn't know what they were doing either. So,
Yeah.
I then learnt business as well to bolt it on to my coach training and to carry on helping other people. So yeah, sort of, similar in that take the learnings and see where you can go with it whilst also holding your hand out to help others along the way.
For sure, yeah. Sometimes it comes when we feel a little bit stuck in life
Yeah,
and we don't know what
definitely.
that next step looks like necessarily. And I know from myself too, like that growing up as well, I had so many difficult situations when it came into working with different employers. And, a lot of times, like I would face some sort of adversity at some of the employment places, and I would have great success. And, the employers would promise me everything in the world to try to keep me there. But then there was something about whether it was like dishonesty or some people not being respected properly or, some sort of business ethics that just didn't align with my inner values. And I couldn't really figure it out as a
Yeah,
youngster. And eventually I just said, I can't work for anybody anymore. Like I've just had too many bad experiences and I was giving it my all
same.
every single place that I was going. And that was something where I wanted to say, okay, well, let me help other people then, right? Hopefully not to go through those type of situations or to create structures where you could, at least be smart and ask ahead of time, right? And say, oh, hey, if you promise me this, can we talk more about that now? Can we put that in writing? Can we put it into a business plan? Can we, again, so you're not facing those type of adversities. And hopefully that's part of why I kind of got into it as well as just saying I always wanted to mentor growing up. And so if I could hopefully be one for somebody else and just help somebody along that pathway,
Yeah,
then I would love to. And even entrepreneurship was never something that I even fathomed of something I would ever get into. I grew up
I,
extremely poor. Yeah.
I think it's important that you mention mentorship as well. So,
Hmm.
you just saying about growing up really poor. One of the next questions I've got for you leads beautifully into this,
Okay.
and it may go well with what you was just going to say, actually. So if you could
Sure.
go back and give a piece of advice to your younger self, um, when you were first starting out, or possibly beforehand, before you were starting out in sales, what would that be? So that young kind of boy growing up poor, what would you say?
Hmm. I think it's just dream bigger. Sometimes we
Ah,
feel like we're so limited, when it comes to like resources
mm,
or our thinking capability. Like I didn't even know how I was going to finish my schooling because it was more about survival first. It's not even about thinking about how I'm going to move forward in life. It's you get to this scarcity place where it's like, hey, I just gotta work hard to be able to finish my schooling. If I can finish my schooling, then maybe I'll have enough credentials to be able to do something in life, earn something in life. I'll be able to afford to have a family. Someone will actually want their daughter to get married to me. There was all these things that fears that you have inside, that I had inside myself because it was just like, well, I didn't have a dad growing up. My dad left when I was only 4 years old, and then my mom was the one that was raising, three boys growing up, and then we just never saw like this financial freedom aspect of things. We just said, okay, I saw my mom working two full-time jobs, 1 8-hour shift, come home real quick and then quickly get ready for the next 8-hour shift, uh, get to bed and then just do it again. So she was working, and that was just at that point, you just see struggle. And when you see
Yeah.
struggle, you don't think about abundance because you're like, well, hey, I gotta put this grind out there. I'm probably gonna have to work, super hard as well because I see my mom doing this. But the good thing is I was able to get a work ethic out of it. But then, that thing to my younger self was just watching my mom go through an educational process as well, where she was able to, get into the nursing system and she started making double of what she was making
Mm.
from working in as a
Amazing.
factory job. So we see the importance of education, skill sets. Um, but again, trying to apply it to my life again, the only thing I could think of after I even started employment was just, getting a house and starting a family. And then all of a sudden, when my earning potential kind of reached that level, I kind of stopped. And then
Mm.
luckily I got more opportunities, a little bit later on. But, you always kind of have that thing like, why did I stop? Why did I get comfortable? When I
Yeah.
have so much more potential inside of me, and that's what I see in so many other people now too. You see, it's always easier to
Yeah.
see potential in others than it is to see in yourself.
And
And
that's the stage where also a mentor or a coach can come into it, because to a certain
Mhm.
extent, it's getting that right balance, isn't it? Because we have to, I believe that we have to go through certain hardships, whatever that means to us, to
Yeah,
have experience and to gain from it. You mentioned abundance. Um, and one of the things that always struck me within my own learning was you don't realize that it's a possibility if you don't know it exists. Because if you're just in that
yeah,
struggle mindset, or, our belief systems apparently form within the first 8 years of life. So if you saw, your mama struggling and stuff like that, that would form part of your belief system. You don't
yeah.
necessarily know that there's anything else possible. And that's through no fault of anybody around you.
Mhm.
It's just you don't know what you don't know, do you? Um,
Yeah,
I
100%.
didn't even realize that we could have a growth mindset. I didn't realize that we could carry on learning. I didn't know that abundance was possible for people like me. And I'm sure you felt the same when you were younger.
Yeah, 100%. And, going back to some of those stories, I was able to see people that barely spoke English in some of the countries that we were dealing with, some of these students, start landing deals with major companies, major US corporations that were in the billions of dollars. Some of the biggest retailers, some of the biggest wholesalers in the US. And it just started blowing my mind about, how many people have this potential inside of them,
Yeah.
even with even the simplest, mindset shift, which was just saying, hey, let me try to just get confident in what I'm doing. And it doesn't have to be necessarily that you need the whole scope of skill sets, but just the courage. Just that someone to say, hey, you can do this. And then again, watching people just flourish and become somebody totally different just because someone was able to just give them a little bit of love and encouragement, a little bit of push. There was a young gentleman that was working with us as well, and his dad got laid off from his employment. And the dad, kind of the son, he's only 17, 18 years old. There's a summer program that we're running. And so young fella, and gave him the encouragement and said, hey, you know what? You could probably figure out how to get your dad a job. And he went to the corporation that they were working with and was able to set up a meeting with them by just simply writing a letter to them. And I'm like, yeah, go deliver it in person. And he went in and they had never even got past ever the warehouse part of the corporation.
Mm.
So instead, they went to that department again, shipping receiving department. And then they were able to get to, one supervisor, and the supervisor said, hey, thank you so much for coming here. And then introduced them to the next manager. And so, going up so many levels in the corporation, his dad was with him as well. And he was just like astonished, like my 17-year-old
Wow.
son is able
Yeah.
to have corporate meetings. How is this happening, right? Like I've never even gotten past the warehouse. And so just watching those type of situations unfold, just brings so much joy to our hearts to say, hey, this young person at 17 years old figured out that it's possible. It's possible to
Yeah.
have corporate meetings. It's possible for people to treat you as an equal when you know how to present yourself in the right manner. And that's all it is. When we learn communication, we learn how valuable that tool is and
Yeah,
how it can
absolutely.
just, yeah, that mindset shift can just change our lives.
Yeah, because so many times fear can hold us back. And also,
Hmm.
anything that comes under kind of a stereotypical bracket. So, I'm only 17, they're not going to listen to me, or English
Yeah.
isn't my first language, they're not going to understand me, or, and they can be limiting beliefs. And just that person saying,
Hmm.
you can do this, and potentially just showing them a pathway of possibilities, opens up so
Yeah.
much, doesn't it? Yeah, I love that. Thank you for
100%.
sharing.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about now is what's next for you?
For us, what we're trying to do is
Hmm.
get our educational platform into the educational system. And I believe that when we teach foundational communication and transferable skills, we
Yeah.
can start being able to teach that along with basic business ethics. And I think it's something that it should be taught for free because, again, it's that mindset shift. A lot of the stuff that we spend time on is just simple mindset, how to add value and how to add value being in service. I think nowadays, what when I look out in the world, what I'm typically seeing is a lot of people saying, what can I achieve? What can I get? How do I get more? And it's all where it's like, okay, well, did we forget about how to serve and how to think about the other person? When I think about like love thy neighbor, and
Yeah.
what I mean by that is how can we go serve our communities? How can we go serve businesses? How can we go help people and realize that when the more that we help people, the more that we can earn from that potential. But when it comes from a place of service where we do it genuinely, and again, when I look around the world, people are striking to say, hey, I just want more, I just want more. But no one's looking at the employer to say, okay, well, is the employer earning enough? Where's that money going to come from? Am I able to help produce something in order to ask for something? Or are we asking in a place where it's, my expenses are high. I have bills to pay. I can't afford this. And then we're looking for someone to blame why we're not financially abundant. And the couple different stats that kind of go with this, in the States, it's 61 to 65% of people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. So that
And
in itself would create a
mhm,
scarcity mindset, wouldn't it? Because, by the
yeah,
time you've got your paycheck and you've paid your rent or your bills and stuff like that, you're fearful of not having enough. That then creates a scarcity mindset, doesn't it?
yeah,
Mm.
100%. Even the World Bank, one of their top priorities right now is how to create employment. And because they're saying in the next decade, our younger generation there's about 1.2 billion jobs that need to be created for these people to be employed. And a
Wow.
lot of this is happening in the continents of Asia and Africa. And what they're saying at current rates of job growth, there's only expected to be 420 million jobs that are created in the next decade, where we actually need again that 1.2 billion. So there's a 800 million job shortfall. And when we look at, those type of stats, and then again, the World Bank talks about, well, what happens when people don't have jobs or people don't have employment? And then we start seeing rebellions happening inside of countries where the
Yeah.
youths are getting up and saying, hey, we need to change government. We see a lot of disruption that's going to start happening, worldwide. In North America, we typically see it in strikes. How many major corporations keep striking, uh,
Mm.
whether, again, even in Europe. But when we're looking at different places in the world, we say, okay, well, everyone just seems to keep having to fight to get more. And so again, teaching people foundational skills on whether it's sales and entrepreneurship, these are all money generating type of opportunities. to create financial abundance. But we also realize that, for example, in the US, there's 35 million small to medium-sized businesses that exist right now. And what we know from the stats is that 50% of these companies are going to go out of business in five
Oh
years,
no, that's such a
right? So
shame, isn't it?
for sure. And this is
Yeah.
similar to around the world. Some like
Mm,
Mexico has stats of 70% of businesses that go out of business within 5 years. There's other parts of the world that I've looked into that, again, I think Pakistan, I had a podcast in Pakistan and I was looking up their stats and it was 70 to 90% of these companies that go out of business within 5 years. And so we have such high rates of these entrepreneurs that are risking everything to get into business, but they're going out of business. And so what we try to teach people in our program too is like, here's the opportunities that we can get into that probably aren't going to cost you anything but your time or your skill sets. That
yeah.
there's so many companies that need help, but they're entrepreneurs and they're small business owners. Usually, could be a solopreneur and or it could be an extremely small company. But a lot of people just kind of look at the big ones and say, hey, we want to go work at, major corporations, Fortune 500, their targets on there. But it's like, well, hey, how do we start helping our neighbors? And this is kind of what I was referring to. And our
Mm,
neighbors are the people that are probably in our neighborhood. It's scrolling out on Google Maps and realizing, oh, hey, you know what? How many of these businesses have names on them, or how many of these homes have business names on them? This guy's running an accounting company. This guy's running a media company. This person's running, some wholesale company, parts distribution, but they sometimes it's just labeled on their house.
yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, can we go talk to some of these people? Does anything resonate with you? So we're teaching people how to start opening up and looking for these type of opportunities to start helping each other to fill some of these gaps. Because if we don't start helping the small entrepreneurs, and these entrepreneurs typically are employing about 80 to 90% of people in the private workforce. And so again, these are the pillars for any country to get stability and prosperity when it comes to getting any country to succeed. You need entrepreneurship. You need small to medium-sized businesses to be able to thrive, to be able to support job growth, support the
This is
economy, bring in tax
this is
dollars.
exactly
Mhm.
why I like positioning myself right at the beginning of people's journeys. So that whole foundational stage, so your mission,
Mhm.
your vision, your values, and just getting those ideas out of people. And it's a difficult balance sometimes, I know, for businesses when, we all want to make money. However, however, if everything is behind a paywall, how are people meant to learn?
Yeah.
How do they learn? How do they get their business foundations in place? How do they know how to look for gaps or, other things that could happen within the market that they could train for and things like that if everything's behind a paywall that they can't achieve? Um, so a lot of what I give out is kind of free information as well. But I love the fact that um, you want to take it more into like an educational space, um, because it does
Yeah.
start with the younger generation, doesn't it?
For sure, yeah. We want to teach again entrepreneurs to reach out for help. That's something we rarely see people do. Like
Mm.
rarely will small to medium-sized businesses reach out for even coaching help
Yeah, I
because
know.
they just have so much on their plates that
Yeah.
it's hard to kind
Yeah,
of
and
think outside the
I think
box.
sometimes they're worried that it's a bit of a trap as well, that you kind of
Hmm.
you say yes and then all of a sudden there's a big paywall there, for them to get past, or it's the possibly pride involved,
Yeah,
in that, I've started this myself, I can do it myself, um, and not realizing that help's available or not trusting that help's available. Um,
yeah.
because sometimes there's so many scams out there, isn't there? There's so many. I don't know about where you are, but in the UK, we're
Yeah.
just covered in scams and things like that, and it makes people hesitant to either accept help or to reach out for help because they're
Hmm.
not, they wonder what's genuine. Um,
Yeah. And I think, so when it comes to sales in general,
mm,
one of the biggest keys in sales is authenticity to really resonate with somebody. And this is another reason why we're teaching it to be in service. To be in service means, hey, let me help you first.
Yeah.
If I could help you get successful, maybe I could have a piece of that upside. And let me take the risk away from you because I understand, what you're going through as a small business or as an entrepreneur. And let me see how I can work with you to be able to help you first, and then create a structure where again I could benefit from that as well if I'm able to help you. And so I believe, again, it takes away from being scammed. Again, you're not asking for money
Mm.
up front. You're
Yeah.
you're you're eliminating these risk factors, but you're also saying, again, in UK, I mean, there's so much opportunity there as well.
Yeah.
And there's so much talent that the UK can actually take from all the countries that are around you and all the people that are coming in, even as immigrants into the UK. You can leverage those languages to be able to leverage more to work with different countries, to be able to diversify the way that you're operating, to look outside even the UK and say, hey, you know what? Some of these other countries around us also do have money. And there's stuff that the UK produces that these guys probably want as well. And so sometimes that comes in the form of education, that comes in the form of business coaching, because
Yeah.
they see that, oh, wow, hey, you know what? The UK is a really rich place to be.
Yeah.
And
And
and that,
I love that the authenticity as well, because that helps build trust, doesn't it? We all need
yeah,
that know, like, and trust, because then they realize that there's no scam involved.
100%. And authenticity is the highest level of vibration. And I
Love
firmly
that.
believe that when we do sales, people can feel you. They can feel whether you're looking out for their best interest or you're looking out for your own. And that's the biggest turnoff when it comes into, again, working with people is, who are they really in it for? And nobody
Yeah.
wants to have that feeling of, I'm being taken advantage of, or someone's only looking at me as a transaction versus a relationship. And
Yeah.
so,
And just literally, you just end up part of a bigger thing system, without
mm,
actually benefiting yourself. Yeah. I
yeah,
I hear you.
and
I do.
and these are the opportunities, right? I
Mm.
think that exist, and I hope, again, we see even, um, again, we don't see the job growth that we should be looking at in the UK right now as well. I think the younger people that are growing up even in Europe are saying there's no opportunities for us.
Yeah.
The markets are being saturated. It's getting too expensive to operate. And this is the thing about, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. But we have to start creating more help on the bottom levels here to allow them to compete with larger corporations. And how are we going to do that? Is when we start learning how to work together. And so
Mm.
if you look at, the foundation of how a lot of major companies got established, like Alibaba was a bunch of friends from school, university that decided to say, hey, we're going to get together and work on a project, right? People that are willing to volunteer their time and say, hey, let's get together, collaborations, right? The power of people, of human capital is huge, right?
Mm.
There's a huge billionaire in the US, Mark Cuban, that's on the show Shark Tank. And so even with him, it was a bunch of him and his friends that were living in one small apartment that, again, they were working on how to do broadcasting when the internet first started going. And so yeah, they would all kind of minimize their expenses, live in one place together, and then to see what comes out of that and how he became a billionaire. But it's like it's that foundation. It's that foundation of saying, hey, you know what? I don't need a huge salary right now, but if we could make something, again, after my 8-hour job, maybe I could spend another 2, 3 hours a day to try to build something that could build this abundance for us. And with technology the way that it is, can I get together with a bunch of friends? Can I make it fun? Like getting financial freedom doesn't have to be painful, right? It could be a place, again, if we learn how to do it in service, where we're just trying to help each other, like, hey, you know what? Let's all try to do this together. We have this one analogy where we say, hey, would you rather own, 10% of a watermelon or 100% of a grape? And this is typical. This is why, again, a lot of small to medium-sized businesses will have a difficult time because they're holding on to this grape and they want to own
Um,
100% of it. because it's like mine. It's a sense of ownership.
Mhm.
But then you say, okay, well, you can hold that little tiny grape, and then again, you can look at the 10% of the watermelon, which is still a big slice like this, right? So it's going to be multiple, how many grapes can go into 10% of a watermelon. And that's what happens when you learn how to get into collaborations.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, hey, if I can get out of myself, again, going back into saying, okay, well, can I get the right business partner? Can I start giving up equity? Some of the companies right now that do the best are the ones that offer shares of their company. They offer incentives. They have commission bases for
Mhm.
their employees to do better. They have a growth path to show somebody like, hey, you know what? If we grow as a company, there's a growth path here for you too.
I love
And
that expression that you just said, to do better, you know? Um,
Mhm.
I like that a lot. Um, I feel like sometimes that it almost causes a bit of a defensive attitude sometimes in people, to do better. And it's not meant like that, is it? It's just meant that you can learn and you can grow, and these things can become
Mhm.
possible for you. Um, and for companies to help staff, or, to give out opportunities for people to do better. How amazing is that?
Yeah, and it can be done in ways where we can take the risk out as well from a
See,
lot of
that's,
that too.
yeah,
And because as an entrepreneur, sometimes it's hard, and maybe you could vouch for this as well, friend, but sometimes it's hard to pay a huge salary to somebody. And when we could barely pay our own bills.
yeah.
And
That's why it's actually my partner and myself that run this, because, then I don't have to have specific employees. There's always other ways around it. But yeah, I do hear you.
Yeah. And I love to give opportunities to young people and to anybody that's willing to just put the same level of work in. Something that even when we look at some of these shows that are entrepreneurship based, when they're investing into somebody, they're usually investing into the person. They're usually
Yeah,
investing into the skill set. And they're saying, hey, you know what? I really like you as an individual. And they realize that that human asset is so much more valuable than money.
yeah,
That human capital is what, personally in my life too, is what I've seen is, a good business always has good people behind it. And usually if you don't have good people in a business, you don't have a business typically. It usually falls apart within a couple years because again, it's that human capacity that really makes these things work. It's that, again, ability or wantingness to be able to serve. And I believe, that's the formula, customer service, right?
yeah.
It's a simple, basic concept. One of the biggest ones that I've seen to be able to, again, scale, companies tenfold, and even beyond that, like the companies that I've been at, we've seen exponential growth. One of the first ones, it was a small business. We started at 1 million a year, and it was just me and the owner and working together. And within 4 years, we were already over 24 million a year. And so, that's a
Amazing.
2400% growth that we can have just by saying, hey, you know what? Can I open up? And it's with the right people, right? Sometimes it takes time to find the right people, but we shouldn't be afraid of that. If we've had one bad experience, two bad experiences, just imagine if it works. Imagine, again, 24xing your business. Imagine
Yeah.
50xing your business. And I've done this with different business partners when I got into business. All my businesses do have business partners in them because I realized that I can do more when I have support. Or I can create structures in place where, again, I don't have to give up equity of my business, but I can create, commission structures. I can create other structures if, that part of my business I'm not comfortable with, but at least I can create opportunities. And sometimes they say, the salespeople make more than the business owners themselves. But then if you have enough salespeople, eventually, it'll multiply and compound, and eventually your share might get a little bit bigger. And so, but at the same time, it's just saying, hey, you know what? Business can be a fun game. That's what I kind of look at it as and say, once you learn it, and once you realize that, hey, everything can, work in compounding, then, if we start letting ourselves open ourselves up to those opportunities, yeah, we can start compounding results in our life. And even if it's just, one, like for me, it's like one customer a year. If I can just build one customer a year, a solid customer, then imagine what I could build in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And just keeping it simple. It's sometimes when people make something too large out of something that's just a small step that we need to start on. And
Yeah.
they call it making a mountain out of a molehill. It's
Mm.
we
And
create these
it's a small
obstacles.
step that then leads to the next one and the next one, rather than having that big
Yeah,
gap there that's unachievable. Yeah, I love this. I can, what I'm going to say is thank you so much for sharing your insights, and
no
part of your
problem.
journey as well. I feel like you've been really, really open with me too. So thank you for talking about your younger self as well. Um, so
Thank you,
for
Fran.
those of you interested in Damon and his work, so you've got a website, haven't you?
For
That's
sure, yeah.
logisticsales.com.
That's
Um,
correct.
yeah. And you're also on LinkedIn, under
Yep.
the same name. So all of this is under the same name. So it's logistic. Is it logistic sales or logistics sales?
Plural, logistics,
Logistics
then
sales.
sales.com. And
Thank you.
again, all our social media handles are on that website as well on the bottom. So
Oh,
people can
amazing. Yeah.
follow
So
on
you've got the website, you've got you because you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, you've got YouTube as well, haven't you?
YouTube,
Um,
TikTok, yeah,
oh,
Instagram,
amazing. Instagram. Yeah. I love
all
it.
the socials.
YouTube's my main home, by the way. I love being on YouTube. So
Perfect.
and if you're interested in more content like this, be sure to visit www.melancholymentor.com. So that's me. You can follow for the latest updates, and the latest podcast episodes are on there as well. And until next time, stay curious, keep igniting your creative potential. Go and find Damon at Logistic Sales, because I just found this absolutely fascinating. But I'm going to wrap this up now.
For
But
sure.
yeah, really, really interesting. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you
Bye.
so much for having me. Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening. I'd love you to subscribe and visit www.melancholymentor.com for the latest updates. Till next time, stay curious and keep igniting your creative potential.